Hello and welcome to Camp, the Catholic audiobook in a month podcast. My name is William Wilson, and today is day 6 of The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. I will be reading the second part of the Ways of Brother Lawrence. He starts by talking about how it's not enough to know God as a theory. Then there's mention of a tree. Now, I want you to remember this. The tree is going to play a very important role in Brother Lawrence's life, so that should be coming up in his conversations, I believe in day 12. He then goes on to talk about how this practice is hard at first, and the mind experiences a crowd of wandering fancies, which I really love. His advice is to keep calm and expel them. Then there's discussion on how thoughts count for little and love is everything. This reminds me of St. Teresa of Avila's famous statement that prayer is not to think much, but to love much. And there's more on that in episode 5 of Abandonment to the Divine Will, available at camp.fm/abandonment. After that, he talks about how there's no need for great things, which reminds me of Mother Teresa's statement to do small things with great love. This is often attributed to St. Teresa of Lisieux, but I believe it is originally Mother Teresa's statement in that formulation. Finally, there's one section that needs explaining. Brother Lawrence talks about how, quote, "Since entering upon the religious life, I no longer perplex myself with thoughts of virtue or my salvation." So it's that part of no longer concerning himself with his salvation that could be troubling if not understood correctly. Now, he's not saying that he abandons his salvation to God, because that's more the heresy of quietism. But I think what we're seeing here is more a statement of trust and faith. That's the reading for today. Let's get started. It is not enough to know God as a theory, from what we read in books, or feel some fleeting motions of affection for Him, brief as the wave of feeling or glimpse of the divine which prompts them. Our faith must be alive, and we must make it so, and by its means lift ourselves beyond all these passing emotions to worship the Father and Jesus Christ in all their divine perfection. This path of faith is the spirit of the Church and will lead to a great perfection. Not only did Brother Lawrence perceive God as present in his soul by faith, but in all the events of life, whensoever they befell, instantly he would arise and seek the presence of God. A leafless tree he saw in winter first flashed in upon his soul the fact of God. So great and so sublime was the vision that after 40 years it was as clear and vivid as when he first received it. Such was his practice throughout life, using things seen to lead him up to the unseen eternal. In his reading, Brother Lawrence far preferred above all other books the Holy Gospel, inasmuch as he found that he could nourish his faith more simply and more purely in the very words of Jesus Christ. Thus it was that Brother Lawrence set out upon the spiritual life with firm resolve, faithfully pursued, to foster in his heart this sublime sense of the presence of God, as seen through faith. Therein he continued steadfastly, glorifying God and showing his love to Him in ways past number. In all he undertook, he entreated the aid of our Lord, giving thanks after he had performed the same. And, having confessed his negligences, he asked pardon therefor trustfully, without, as he termed it, pleading with God. And forasmuch as this communion with God was interwoven with his daily labor, and furnished him with matter for it, he did his work with the greater ease, and very far from distracting him, it aided him therein. Yet he confessed that it was hard at first, that many a time he had been unmindful of this practice, but that, after humble confession of his failure, he had betaken himself to it again without trouble. At times a crowd of wandering wild fancies would invade his mind and take violent possession of the place of God. When such happened, he told me, he kept quite calm and proceeded straight away to expel them. This done, he returned to his commune with God. At last his faithfulness and patience won its reward in the possession of his soul by a sense, unbroken and undisturbed, of the presence of God. All his acts, in kind so varying and so multiplied in number, were changed into an unclouded vision, an illumined love, a joy interrupted. This is what he once told me. For me, the time of action does not differ from the time of prayer, and in the noise and clatter of my kitchen, while several persons are together calling for as many different things, I possess God in as great tranquility as when upon my knees at the Blessed Sacrament. Sometimes, indeed, my faith becomes so clear that I almost fancy that I have lost it. The shadows which veil our vision usually seem to be fleeing away, and there begins to dawn that day which is to be without cloud and without end, the glorious day of the life to come. To such heights as these, faithfulness led our good brother, that faithfulness which bade him cast behind all other thoughts to leave his soul free for unbroken communion with God. And in the end, so much did habit become second nature, that, as he told me, it was a manner impossible for him to turn away from God and busy himself with other matters. In the Conversations, he makes an observation on this point which is important. I mean, when he says that the presence of God can be reached rather by the heart and by love than by understanding. These are his words. In the way of God, thoughts count for little, love is everything. Nor is it needful, he goes on to say, that we should have great things to do. I am giving you a picture of a lay brother serving in a kitchen. Let me then use his own words. We can do little things for God. I turn the cake that is frying on the pan for love of him. And that done, if there is nothing else to call me, I prostrate myself in worship before him who has given me grace to work. Afterwards, I rise happier than a king. It is enough for me to pick up but a straw from the ground for the love of God. We search for stated ways and methods of learning how to love God, and to come at that love we disquiet our minds by I know not how many devices. We give ourselves a world of trouble and pursue a multitude of practices to attain a sense of the presence of God. And yet, it is so simple. How very much shorter it is and easier to do our common business purely for the love of God, to set his consecrating mark on all we lay our hands to, and thereby to foster the sense of his abiding presence by communion of our heart with his. There is no need either of art or science. Just as we are, we can go to him simply and with single heart. I preserve his words religiously. We must not, however, fancy that to learn to love God it suffices to offer him our acts and entreat his aid and show forth works of love. Brother Lawrence only attained to the perfection of his love because, from the very outset, he had laid stern discipline upon himself to do nothing which might be displeasing to God, and because, forgetting self, he had renounced all for his sake. Here are his very words. Since entering upon the religious life, I no longer perplex myself with thoughts of virtue or of my salvation, but, having given myself wholly to God, to make what satisfaction I could for my sins, and for love of him, having renounced all that is not his, I have come to see that my only business is to live as though there were none but he and I in this world. Thus Brother Lawrence began by what was most perfect, forsaking all for God and doing everything for his love. He entirely forgot self. He never any longer thought on heaven or hell or on his past sins, nor on those he daily committed after he had asked God's forgiveness of them. Having confessed them, he no more suffered his mind to go back thereon, but, with the confession, entered upon a perfect peace, after which he commended himself to God, as he used to say, for life and for death, for time and for eternity. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Tomorrow I will read the third part of the Ways of Brother Lawrence. You're going to hear aspects of St. John of the Cross, of St. Therese, and of the abandonment to the divine will. So I hope you will join us. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, share, and help us grow. Also, please check out oratebooks.com, now featuring The Ways of Mental Prayer by Vital Léodet. Praised by Pope St. Pius X and spiritual leaders across generations, this masterwork guides readers through the transformative journey of prayer, from its foundational practices to its most profound mystical heights. That's ORATE books.com. If you'd like to learn more about us, please visit camp.fm. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.